if you're looking to get your first real estate deal under your belt, how do you do that? How do you break away, and how do you stop mindlessly going through a bunch of seminars and webinars and all kinds of stuff and eventually get to the point where you get your first deal, and then after that it's all downhill from there? That's what we're going to try to answer in today's video, and I have a special guest. This is the one and only Alex Youngblood. Alex runs the largest Facebook group for wholesaling real estate, and it's called, oddly enough, a really great name, which is
Wholesaling Houses Full Time.
That's right, because you want to be wholesaling houses full time. We do have a sidekick here with us here, Eric, and that's what we're going to do in today's video, is that we want to answer that question. And I thought no better person that to answer that question, I got to get this thing off my than Alex here, because Alex used to be an alarm sales rep, right? Before,
yep,
an alarm sales rep. And every so often, you yearn to go back to those days of being an alarm salesperson.
Oh,
I know.
Very miss it every day.
Yeah. You ever thought about that one day, just trying to deliberately try to get a job and see how you would fit into the rest of society, and just work for like a day or two, and then just tell everybody to F off and I'm out of here?
Every time I think about that, I talk myself out of it.
Yes. So want to talk about, you run a really large Facebook group.
Yeah.
And in that Facebook group, you see a lot of things that are working, a lot of things that are not working. So you and I are going to be together for a whole entire week.
This is amazing.
Right. Unless you get tired of me and you decide to leave and skip out of town.
Leave. Just be like, honey, I'm
right.
out.
So we're gonna discuss. We're gonna discuss a bunch of things while we're together. So one of the things I wanted to discuss today was what you see. You run a fairly large group, and so you see people all the time inside of the group posting things that they're struggling with and things that are working for them when it comes to real estate investing marketing. Because again, it doesn't matter how many ways you know how to do a deal, how knowledgeable you are about the different strategies of financing or any sort of tactics around putting a deal together. You need leads. You need people to talk to. Otherwise, then you're only going to talk to yourself in the mirror, and that gets old very quickly.
Very quickly.
Yeah. So my question is, and I haven't prepped them on this question here, is you're doing something right now, so we want to talk about that in terms of
what am I doing right now?
No, in terms of where you're getting your deals from.
Oh, okay.
Right. And so let's talk. I want to talk about what you're doing now, and I also want to talk about, like, hey, what are some of the things that you're seeing that people are doing in the group? What are some of the things that they're having a struggle with? So let's talk about first in terms of, now you and I had an interesting discussion about the intent of the prospect. So whenever somebody, so let's talk about
the difference between interruption marketing and intentional, right?
Right. So what's interruption? Give me an example of interruption.
Interruption marketing would be an example of Facebook, right? So a lot of people know you for Facebook and using Facebook to find motivated sellers. So somebody goes on Facebook not for the purpose of selling their house, but they go on Facebook for the purpose of checking out their friends and looking at pictures of dogs and cats and their grandkids and all that stuff. And then when they see an ad, it's like, whoa, wow, there it is. And they might think, well, maybe I do need to sell my house, right? So it's completely something that interrupts their intent for using Facebook that day.
But here's the thing. You and I had this discussion at the, we're here at the Disney World here. We had the discussion that in terms of interruption, right? In terms of, like, if you're going to go out and do marketing, right? The best marketing, like on one side of the spectrum, you would have a seller that raises their hands and says, Alex Youngblood, I don't care. It doesn't matter who else wants my house. I want to sell it to you.
Yes.
On the other end of the extreme is somebody that says, if you call me again, I'm going to call the police.
Yeah.
Right?
Which happens.
Right. So I happen to think, we had the discussion. So let's talk about on both ends.
Right.
One end of the extreme is, I would think, cold calling. Isn't cold calling on that end of the extreme because I would think, isn't cold calling more interruption driven?
So yes, I would put cold calling in the terms of interruption, right? Just because during the day you are calling somebody, and obviously they have no control over the fact that you are interrupting their day. But it is very possible that. There you go.
Yeah.
It is very possible.
I'm not editing the video. Go ahead.
Not editing, right?
Yes.
So it's very possible that they may need to sell their house, and you're hoping that your action in calling them is going to spur that to turn them into a lead, right? So that is a form of interruption marketing.
So that is, so in that, would you say, see, I always say that when you're cold calling, although it could be effective, that you are interrupting their day and they had no desire to talk to anybody, and now they're talking to you, and then now they're trying to figure out if they're going to hang up the phone with you or not.
Right.
Okay. What about text messaging?
Texting, that's another form of interruption marketing, right? Because
But text messaging when nobody has called you and you're just taking that list of phone numbers that you skip trace.
Right.
And skip tracing is where we go out and we find a list of properties. I wonder if they can hear me. This might have an impact on our video. Yeah.
It's quite loud.
Yeah. Well, we
might have to do a part 2.
Yeah, but I didn't want to stop this video here. Let me see.
This is going to be so much fun! You're here!
All right.
So we're going to keep doing this during the
We're going to talk
party.
Yeah, even this microphone, I think we'll keep it. So we're going to keep on doing that. We're going to proceed, okay?
Okay.
Where we left off is
interruption marketing. And texting.
So if nobody can hear it because of that going on back there, then we're going to have to re-record it again, okay?
We might.
But I'm going to come closer so they can hear us better, okay?
Okay, all right.
All right. So what I was saying is that when if you go out and you get a list of property owners that are interested in selling their property that you think might be interested, you can try to reach out to them a couple different ways. So one of the ways is by taking the phone numbers and taking the addresses of these properties and the owners and finding the phone numbers through a service called skip tracing, and then now you can reach out to them by either calling them or you can text them. But again, they did not in any way whatsoever want or have any desire to talk to anybody, but you're going in there and trying to interrupt their day, right?
Absolutely. You are popping up on their phone. They have no idea that you are doing that. You know?
Right.
So obviously, as we're talking about this too, we're going to talk about the other side of it, which is like when somebody has a full intention of seeking you out, right? So this is interruption, where we are popping up in front of somebody in hopes that we're going to fill a need that they have.
So the opposite of that would be what you're doing now, which is you're doing PPC.
Pay-per-click, yes.
Pay-per-click, which is, so just pay-per-click is when you go on Google and you type in "sell my house fast," and you're going to see a bunch of results, and those first results, the first 3 results are ads, and so you're advertising there. And you were telling me that right now that is working to be a great channel for you, right?
Yeah, it's working really well. And may I preface this too to say it's not that one is worse than the other or better than the other. There's just 2 different types of marketing. You have interruption marketing, and then the other side of it is like that intentional marketing.
But you're saying one, I would think, okay, my thing would be, you're saying that one isn't better than the other, but I think that if you had a choice, you would want to have people reach out to you.
I love when people come to me rather than me come to them, right? It's the difference between a seller saying to you, well, you texted me, you called me, you make me an offer, right? I love it when I can say to the seller, you contacted me, what do you want for your house? It's a whole different conversation. It's that whole idea of what side of the table are you on? Are you the one that's asking them, or are they the one that's asking you? It's kind of like negotiation. The one that talks first loses, right? So kind of along those lines.
So you're doing pay-per-click advertising, and right now, that's where you're focusing. That's where you're focusing right now, pay-per-click, right?
I mean, we do text message marketing, and we also do some cold calling. But pay-per-click, I've noticed that it takes a less amount of leads from pay-per-click in order to get a deal. 1 out of 10 as opposed to maybe 1 out of 50 with the other way.
And that is because you know what we should do? We should do a video about some of the things that you're finding about pay-per-click. Maybe we'll do that this week as we're together. So now let's talk about the middle ground. What I said was, and I'm going to get closer to you, but don't worry, just because I want the microphone to be closer, because we still got the music in the background there. There you go. Direct mail. We had a discussion around this. I thought direct mail and Facebook are about the same, meaning that you're not being a complete pest because they're raising their hand and they're either calling you or submitting a form.
Right.
But they didn't intentionally go out into the world that day to figure out a solution for the property.
Right, exactly.
So it's kind of like a middle ground.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. It's kind of in the middle.
But when somebody calls you from direct mail, they have the opportunity, obviously, to not call you, right? It's something they could easily just throw to the side.
But it's the same thing with Facebook. That's the thing I don't. When you said that, if the seller gets a postcard in the mail, it just happens to show up, right, middle of the day, they weren't expecting it. Isn't that kind of the same as if they saw an ad?
Here's the differentiating factor. The differentiating factor is that with direct mail, I can create a world or a list of people I want to contact me. With Facebook, it could be anybody, meaning they might not have equity in their house, right? But with direct mail, I can control who I'm sending mail to and who's going to potentially call me back.
Maybe. Just I have to. I could see. Okay, I see your point in that. I see your point in that. Okay.
But
yeah.
We're not necessarily talking about the actual list itself.
Right.
We're talking about the methodology.
Right.
And yes, it is similar that when mail comes to the house,
right,
it is a little bit of an interruption. But when a seller goes to their mailbox, they are expecting to pick up mail and expected to be presented with offers and opportunities and a whole bunch of things.
Right. Okay. We're gonna stop that topic because you're making a little bit too much sense. but in general, I would say we both agree. I would disagree on some of those points. Okay. But I would say we both agree that direct mail and Facebook are kind of middle ground.
Yes.
Cold calling is more interruption driven.
Yes.
Right. Text blasting is more interruption driven.
Yes.
And PPC is the cream of the crop. Somebody who raises their hand.
PPC is wonderful,
Right.
but it is the most expensive version of this type of marketing. However, because you need less leads to make a deal, it is cost effective in that sense.
So it's interesting. You bring up an interesting point because then when we talk about cost per lead, when you're dealing with figuring out what works and what doesn't, the real metric is cost per deal. Right, because you can have a higher cost per lead with PPC, but your cost per deal could be less because you need less leads.
Right.
Yeah.
So your cost per, so let's say I'm seeing across the board and from people I talk to, $250 a lead with PPC, right?
Yeah.
So if you get 10 leads and get a deal out of that, your cost per deal is $2,500, right?
And how much are you paying cost per lead in your PPC?
So it ranges anywhere between $150 to $250 based on the week.
Okay, $150 to $250. All right. So let me ask you just to make sure. And what we should do here's what I suggest, guys. All right, I'm hanging out with this guy for the next week.
Yes.
All right. So what questions would you like for us to answer for you? Let me know, what do you think, if you haven't done your first deal, what is standing in your way of getting your first deal done, right? And getting you to that, my objective, my thing I always say to people is, number one is get your first deal. Number two is get your first 2 to 3 deals. By the time you get your first 2 to 3 deals, you already know and you figured out how this business works. And at that point then is figuring out what the marketing is and what you want to do. But getting the first 2 to 3 deals on your belt is key. So if you haven't gotten your first 2 to 3 deals, what questions do you have that we can answer this week that we can help you do that? And I'm going to put a link in the description for his group. You can also look for it. Just type in the Facebook Wholesaling Houses Full Time. You see his face show up. Submit your information. They'll get you in. And it's a great group. He has lots of great content. And that's it. That's it for today. Hopefully they could hear this. Otherwise, we'll have to re-record this entire thing all over again.
Which is cool too.
Which is cool. So make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell. Also, make sure to watch out the videos here on either side. Take a look at those. Got some great content there. And I will talk to you later.